This heartbreaking story is exactly why you should be very careful around your friends, especially when they begin to show signs of envy and jealousy, because ignoring these signs can sometimes lead to devastating and deadly consequences like the one in this tragic story. On the 8th of September 2024, Paulinus Okon was invited by his best friend, Efe Onoitiyi, who was popularly known by the nickname Efe Money, to a birthday party in Otokutu, Delta State, Nigeria. However, before Paulinus left home that day, he told his brother that his friend Efe said he had a dream and that in the dream he saw him getting kidnapped. Paulinus and his brothers didn't make a big deal out of this said dream, and in a matter of hours, it would become something they would live to regret for the rest of their lives. The two friends left for the party in Paulinus' car. However, when it got really late that day and Paulinus didn't return home, his family became worried. They tried reaching him on the phone, but his number was not going through. The next day, Efe showed up at Paulinus' boutique to ask for him. This came as a surprise to the family because they remembered clearly that Paulinus left home that very day with him. The family confronted Efe, citing that he left home the previous day with their son, and that if anybody should be asking about Paulinus' whereabouts, it should be them, not him. Surprisingly, Efe was said to have denied ever going out with Paulinus that very day, and then left the shop. The family continued the search for their son, but all to no avail. Some days later, Efe visited the family once again, and then asked Paulinus' brother to give him the sum of 500,000 naira so that he could pay a native doctor who would then use spiritual powers to tell him where Paulinus was. The concerned brother gave him the requested amount and he left to do the findings. However, after some days, Efe returned to the family with a SIM card belonging to Paulinus and then informed them that his friend Paulinus had been kidnapped. He told them that the kidnappers reached out to him and also gave him his friend's SIM card to return to the family. Efe went on to say that the kidnappers were requesting a ransom in order to safely release Paulinus back to them. The concerned family members raised 11 million naira and then gave it to him to give to the kidnappers. However, after making this initial payment, they never got any updates telling them where to go and pick up Paulinus, nor did they witness the safe return of their son. Some days later, Efe visited the family again and then told them that the kidnappers were requesting an additional 7 million naira before they would release Paulinus. Again, the family raised the requested amount and then gave it to him to give to the kidnappers. Now, at this point, they were expecting Paulinus to be released back to them after paying a total amount of 17 million naira as ransom. But disappointingly, there was no sign of Paulinus anywhere. Rather, Efe showed up at the house again, but this time his visit had nothing to do with the kidnappers or the ransom situation. Efe told his friend's family that he had been using his car to run around, working as a middleman between the kidnappers and the family. He informed them that in the process of doing so, his car engine had broken down and that he needed the sum of 3.3 million naira to get it fixed. Once again, the innocent family raised the requested amount and then gave it to him to fix his car. At this point, you might think that was the end of the extortion, but no. Efe later called Paulinus' brother to inform him that he had also been kidnapped alongside his friend and that the kidnappers were requesting the sum of 1.5 million naira for his own release. The unsuspecting brother gathered the requested amount once again and then sent it to him, with the hope that the two friends would now be safely released back to them, but he was very wrong. Now, it is not clear why the family didn't report the case to the police at the initial stage. It could be that they were threatened or warned against involving the police in the situation. However, when the family noticed that all the money they'd spent was not yielding the intended result, Paulinus' brother reached out to the human rights activist Israel Joe. Israel was said to have taken them to the Ughelli police station to file a report. Shortly after this was done, Paulinus' car was recovered from a roadside and then taken to the Ughelli Area Command. Efe, who was believed to be the last person who saw Paulinus alive, was arrested and then taken in for questioning. Disappointingly, after Efe was arrested, nothing much was done regarding the investigation, as Efe pretended not to know anything about his friend's disappearance. Israel later revealed that he received a phone call from Efe, who was still in police custody at the time. In the phone call, Efe threatened to deal with Israel after his release from custody for revealing his identity online. At this time, Paulinus had been missing for almost 2 months. Israel, along with Paulinus' family, then filed a petition requesting that the case be transferred from the Ughelli Area Command to the Delta State Command Headquarters, or Zone 5 of the Nigerian Police Force. The request was granted, and Efe was transferred to the State Criminal Investigation Department, State Headquarters, Asaba, Delta State. The police then swung into action and began their investigation into uncovering the circumstances surrounding the sudden disappearance of Paulinus Okon. Since Efe claimed to be the middleman between the kidnappers and his friend's family, he found himself in a predicament he never prepared for. Through an intelligence-led investigation, the police were able to indict 48-year-old Okemute Gaga, who would later go on to give the chilling details of what truly happened to Paulinus that day. Paulinus Okon was the owner of Easy Boutique, and he took pride in being known as the owner of the biggest boutique in Otokutu. He was originally from Cross River State, but left for Delta State to see how to make a living. After years of hard work, Paulinus had a breakthrough in his chosen trade. He began investing his money with the hopes of expanding his business. Now, it is not known how long Paulinus had been friends with Efe, but judging from the way he trusted him, the two must have known each other for years. It was reported that Efe was in charge of most of his ventures. Efe was also alleged to have overseen his investments and properties, and that he was also in possession of some of his vital property documents. There were also reports that Paulinus assisted his friend a lot, with some sources claiming he even bought him a car. Nevertheless, everything was going well between the two until Efe presented what sounded like a good business opportunity to Paulinus. He told Paulinus that there was a building up for sale at a very good location that he could purchase to open another boutique. Paulinus bought into the idea. After all, that was not the first time Efe had presented such an investment opportunity to him. Efe then told him that the building would cost 30 million naira, to which Paulinus agreed to pay installmentally. Now, it is not known if Paulinus actually went to see the property himself, or if he just trusted his friend to handle everything. But judging from how things later played out, it is highly unlikely that he went with him to check out the property before making the payments. Paulinus was said to have paid the requested 30 million naira in 3 installments. However, after completing the payment, there was no building in sight. He asked Efe why he was here to get the building he had paid for, but Efe couldn't give him a clear response. Little did Paulinus know that his trusted friend had defrauded him of his hard-earned money, and that things were going to get even worse for him. Instead of Efe to pay for the said property as expected, he diverted the 30 million naira into his personal bank account and then used it for his own investments. Efe was alleged to have used the money to buy 2 lands and also build a duplex for himself. Paulinus began disturbing him for the property he paid for, and this disturbance awoken some darkness in Efe. Efe, who was now confused about how to tell his friend that there was no building and that he had used the money to buy properties for himself, decided to silence Paulinus forever. He paid someone the sum of 450,000 naira to help him kill Paulinus, but for unknown reasons, the person refused to do the job. Efe then approached Okemute Gaga and paid him the total sum of 680,000 naira to carry out the hit on his friend. Okemute then recruited his friend, Sunday Ikpeba, to assist with the job. After this, Efe called the chief priest of Otokutu, Lawrence Joseph. He asked him if he had touched a woman, to which Lawrence replied no. Efe then informed him that he wanted to bring coconut for him. The coconut in this case was what they used as a code name for human hair. After all had been planned and arranged, Efe then visited Paulinus to invite him to a birthday party in the same Otokutu where his boutique was located. Before this, Efe had lied to Paulinus that he had a bad dream and that in the dream he saw Paulinus getting kidnapped. Paulinus then told his family about the dream. Unknown to him, this dream was just a ploy so that when Efe finally carried out his evil plans, it would then look like his nightmare had become a reality. After they left home that day, Efe lured Paulinus to a river in Otokutu, where the three assassins were waiting. When they got there, Paulinus was captured and then tied to a stake close to the river. They then drove his car to a junction to make it look like he had been kidnapped. After Paulinus had been tied to the stake, Efe, who had already instructed them on what to do, decided to leave the river, an action he took in order to gain plausible deniability in case anything goes wrong. This would have granted him the opportunity to claim that he was not present when the deed was done. And guess what? He did exactly that after he was arrested. Paulinus was beheaded that night and his body thrown into the river. The chief priest then took the head back to his shrine to bury it, while Efe showed up at Paulinus' shop the next day to look for him, an action he took just to make it look like he knew nothing about his friend's whereabouts. Some days later, Efe got information that his friend's body had floated in the river. He then alerted his accomplices, who returned to the river once again to handle the situation. They were said to have taken out the intestines and then tied concrete blocks to the body before throwing it into the river the second time. The police arrested the chief priest, Sunday Ikpeba, and even the first person who rejected the job, and then took them in for questioning. After the interrogation, Lawrence, along with the others, led the police to his shrine, where the buried head was exhumed and recovered. The community members who witnessed the whole process were left in serious shock and anger. All the suspects involved were taken into custody pending further actions from the police. This was indeed a very heartbreaking case. It would be interesting to know the verdict the judge will give to all the suspects involved in the crime. What verdict do you think Efe will receive, or at least deserve, considering the fact that he only gave the order but did not actually carry out the murder himself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I must say that this case was still new, and at the time this video was made, it was still under active investigation. So make sure to like, share and subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss out on any updates. Thank you for watching and stay safe.